Okay.
Got it. Okay, let's open this meeting. Sorry it's late. This is a relatively quick meeting. It's more informational than anything else. So, does anybody have any announcements? Open session? Anything?
No.
Okay. First on the agenda is Old Kings Highway. Right?
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see if I can bring you up to date. You all have the correspondence that has been going back and forth between myself, the tree warden, who is also the head of the DPW, Jay, as
Mhm.
well as Victor Staley, as well as one of the abutters across the street, Grabby, who was basically initiated this correspondence, and a number of other abutters.
Right.
It was brought to planning board's attention that work was being done on 1021. I think I have that correct. Old Kings Highway, which is
2101.
2101. Thank
Yeah.
you. 2101, which is on Old Kings Highway, located between Route 6, Long Pond Road, that trees would since it was a scenic road, there was a complaint that planning board was not notified of trees being taken down. On the scenic road. So I contacted the tree warden to go out and take a look. So basically, Jay was about the first one to view it. There is an existing house with a new foundation in the ground. There is an existing driveway that comes out on Long Pond Road. Victor Staley went out because he was requested by the complainant, and he reviewed it and basically said, listen, this is out of my purview, which he is correct. He considers he governs building laws only. So it's really between the planning board and the tree warden and the owner of the property. I had visited the property before the foundation was built. Foundation's now in the ground, and the board can see, because a plot plan was submitted by Victor, that the garage foundation that has been installed is in fact 37 feet off the front lot line. I did talk, in viewing the property again today, I did talk to the owner of the property. We had a good conversation. I asked specifically whether or not any trees were taken down. And she informed me that they weren't.
We're not.
However, she also let me know that the town of Wellfleet had gone in at some point, and they had cut down a number of trees within the scenic road, which they have jurisdiction to do. And I could still see the stumps that were there. The front line is well marked. The applicant has in fact dotted every I and crossed every T, and had that front line laid out, surveyed, and there's probably some monuments in place. I have no reason at this point, after talking to the owner, to see that any trees were taken out. However, if there was any tree taken, if there were any trees taken out, the stumps are gone anyway. There was a original curb cut to build that property. That curb cut, whether or not it was filed with building inspector back when it was built, I'm sorry, with the DPW, I have no idea. But that house has existed for years. He did, the owner did describe to me how wide approximately that driveway was, and that they parked cars, brought boats in and out and everything else. So it is a good, and was a good wide entrance. I did ask if she had any pictures of it, because they just purchased it a while ago, and they don't. The complainant across the street had submitted to the planning board a letter from abutters saying that trees were taken down on a scenic road. And she also provided a letter that the Wellfleet Planning Board, which I believe you all have, backdated in mid-90s, because I think there was another piece of property that she had complained about taking trees down. And the planning board sent her a reply and in that reply, the planning board did not clearly state the Massachusetts regulations on scenic road. I think if you read it, you will see that the planning board replied that, yes, you are correct. No trees had to be taken down on a scenic road without permission from the planning board. What they failed to mention clearly in that reply to the complainant is that no trees should be taken down within the layout of the road. A scenic road designation does not change whatsoever the owner's rights to take down whatever trees they so desire on their property that is not included in a town layout or a road layout. And so part of this complaint, and I think, again, you probably have the notice before you, is that the complainant, along with other abutters, are going under the response from the planning board in mid-90s and thinking that the trees that were taken down for garage, for septic, and for other reasons was in direct conflict and should not have been touched because it was on a scenic road. So the planning board in 1995 misdirected the complainant and whomever she showed that letter to, which was a number of other individuals, with misinformation. So what I wanted to do tonight is make the board aware of the fact that as chair, I have talked to the town tree warden. Number one, to establish if he had any information as to what may or may not have been taken down, as well as a letter from Victor, as well as misinformation from the previous planning board in mid-90s to the abutters, sort of compounding the complaint, where in fact the owners of the property were certainly not in violation of taking trees down on their own property. So what we have at this point, and I don't know if any of you have gone out to take a look at it. I know Alfred has, but I don't know if anybody else has. So I'm going to ask
Yeah.
Olga, have you?
I
Oh.
did.
Okay, Bonnie? You're muted, but I saw you shake your head, Bonnie, so it's okay. David Rowell?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. What you have out there, at least what I saw with my eyes, and since Olga's been out there and Alfred's been out there, certainly jumping, guys, if I misrepresent. What you see is relatively about a 35-foot wide opening on Old Kings Highway. The way the town of Wellfleet had gone in on that scenic road years ago and brushed it back, those stumps are still there. And some of those trees that they took down, I think they were mostly pine, because the traveled road of probably only about 10 feet. On the westerly side, which is the side in question, between the traveled way and the edge of the laid out Old Kings Highway, is probably in this location of 30 to 35 feet, only about 3 feet, maybe 4.5 feet in width. But you can see where, especially to the south, coming from Route 6, you can see the trees that the town took down, some of which were probably in excess of 12 inches. And they brushed back another 2 to 3 feet beyond that in that particular area, because you can tell as you drive up to that location that there are no trees, all just what I would say would be some small scrub oak saplings, maybe 2.5 to 3 feet tall in a couple locations. And that's relatively it. There might be some low ground cover, but nothing really substantial in nature. So this is basically bringing you, the planning board, up to date as to where we are at this point. I did talk with the applicant. I did let the owner know that we were having a meeting tonight, that was not a public meeting. It was more of an input to the planning board to see what the board would like to see happen with this particular location. I think if you read the correspondence, Victor has stated, Jay has stated that there are no stumps sticking out from any trees that may have been taken out. Therefore, it is extremely difficult to ascertain whether or not any trees were taken out. Now, there's a new garage being built. Consequently, you're coming off a very narrow Old Kings Highway. You've got to have cement trucks make that turn. You've got bulldozers, excavators, doing some serious work up there on that side of the hill. They had to get in there. So, depending on what the board determines in talking to the owner, the discussion was, no, we didn't take any trees down, number one. There may have been some very, very low miscellaneous brush, but no stone walls of any kind or anything of that nature. They do plan on doing some planting when the project is done, hardening up the driveway. So they are certainly open, if the planning board, when they're prepared to do so, submit to the board a planting and driveway plan for us to look at when they reach that point in the construction period. So we have that option to wait to see, or as the scenic road by the state of Massachusetts states, we could advertise and have a public hearing, but there's no stumps. There's nothing really concrete to say, all right, you did take it down. The owner says they didn't. I'd rather see, number one, I want your input, of course, but I'd much rather see that if we can solve the problem between the planning board and the applicant amicably, I think that would be better off for all of us. But now that I think I've touched most of the points, I'd like to open it up to the planning board members for your feedback. And so what I'm going to do, because I can see you just on the line, I'm just going to go right down the line for my sake. Bonnie, your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, so I mean, all I know is what I read in the documentation.
Yes.
And it sounds like there was, so it strikes me from the dates of the communications that the tree cutting happened over the summer. Because there was a letter quoted to you in July. And I mean, it just seems to me that the neighbors are saying very clearly that this happened recently. So was it the town who, but then how can it, I'm just so confused, because then how can it be that there's no signs of all those stumps? You know, so I'm confused about the timing of everything. Because apparently, Jerry, you got a letter in July, which then we never saw, or it never got to our agenda. And
Well, the
maybe
reason why, I'll see if I can answer that from memory.
yeah,
I
okay.
believe the letter that was written to the planning board back then,
Mm-hmm.
in July, was a letter referring to taking trees down on the lot, complaining about taking so many trees down on the
Yeah.
lot.
Right.
We have no jurisdiction over trees being taken down on the lot. So I didn't address it.
Ah.
That's not
Oh,
my.
in other words, so it was clear that it was on their lot and not on
The way
part
I
of the
read the
scenic
letter,
road.
Bonnie, the way I read the letter, the
Yeah.
individual complaint was complaining about trees being taken down on the property.
Hmm.
So I quite honestly, I dismissed it and said, that is not our jurisdiction. I really didn't want to get into a deliberation.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't until a following letter in, let's see, this is November. I don't have it in front of me and I can't pull it up because I lost the ability to do that at the last minute. I just had this thing cleaned 5 hours ago. I believe the next correspondence that came in was probably sometime either in late September or October. I think it was September, which I passed off to Jay as a tree warden.
Yeah, we got all that.
Yeah,
We got
and
all
I
that.
think if you start piecing that together, I think you'll see that there was a long time between the time Jay was notified and Victor till we got to this point.
Yeah.
I think I had sent out Jay to look at it. He deliberated at least, I think, Bonnie, over a month. And I'm not blaming Jay at all, but when he went out there, it was like, okay, I know there was a driveway that had to go up to the property. I didn't see any stumps. I saw no indication that basically anything was disturbed other than some ground cover. And he may have noticed that before his time that some lot clearing within the layout of the road was done by the town of Wellfleet in tree trimming and was trying to piecemeal it together.
Yeah.
And it didn't really escalate until I saw Victor's response and then saw the letter from the abutters and the letter from the planning board with the misinformation. I said, okay, this is gonna,
Right.
you know, I want to make sure that I get to the planning board to say, wait a minute, I don't want to call out a previous planning board myself. I think the planning board, we've got to put our heads together and say, okay, I think we've got to address, number one, what we want to do with this access. And I think number two, we need as a board to respond in writing to the complainant and some of the abutters who signed that letter, that in
Right.
fact, they are operating under a miscommunication and misinformation under the state regulation on scenic roads. I think that that's in a second problem that we as a planning board need to address as a board. Not singularly me responding to that. So I don't know if that helps you or not.
So could you explain, I'm looking at the 1998 letter
Yes,
from the planning board. What is the mistake in that letter?
okay, I don't have it in front of me, Bonnie, but if I remember correctly in reading it, it states that, I think in the second or third line or third sentence, it says something about the planning board agrees that no trees should be taken down on a scenic road. Do you see that reference?
Yeah, so
And you got it in front of me, so you can read it right back to me if you so desire.
there are special requirements with regard to cutting of trees or removing stone walls on scenic roads. Town
Yep.
records indicate you're the owner of a property that abuts the scenic road. Anyone intending to cut trees or remove stone walls along a scenic road must appear before the planning board at a public hearing to receive approval for the intended alteration.
Yes, okay,
And then
stop right there, stop right there.
Okay,
What they're referring to, and I think they meant to say, but didn't, on scenic roads, however, they forgot to say those trees and stone walls have to be located within the road layout. So they were leading the complainant and the abutters that if you're on a scenic road, you can't take any
Can't
trees
cut
down.
anything, yeah.
ah,
They made it too general. They didn't narrow it down. If they had said, no, you are correct, no trees or stone walls may be taken down within the limits of the road
Mhm.
layout, there would have been no problem and they would have been correct.
I see.
Is that a 30-foot layout, Jerry, or do we know?
Well, unfortunately, the layout in that area, David, from Route 6
Hmm,
to somewhere near this property, the layout of Old Kings Highway is laid out on the westerly side. So the westerly side for part of that road is laid out. When you get up near this property, you have to go beyond this property to the east to pick up the easterly side of the road layout, because there is no layout except for a property line and cart path at the beginning of Old Kings Highway from Route 6 in.
so you were saying there's not a definitive 30-foot or 40-foot layout for that whole stretch?
That's exactly correct.
It's undefined?
Part of it, sorry, part of Old Kings Highway from
Yeah.
Route 6
Yeah,
to approximately Barnabas Road on the right that Warren Rhodes laid out and started subdividing.
yeah,
From that point, because they came to the planning board for a subdivision and to create Barnabas Road, it's now defined from that point out to Long Pond Road.
it is defined from that point.
It's defined from that point out on both sides. Yes.
It's 30.
That's a 30-foot layout?
No,
No, I don't think so. Alfred, do you know?
Yeah, well, I'm going to guesstimate. If you come in from Long Pond Road to where the first road is that goes off towards Rowell Road, it's probably 40 and 60 feet wide. From
And it
there,
slopes down.
then it drops down to maybe 40. I'm guesstimating because I'm going by the layouts of what the subdivisions are.
Yeah.
Then when you get down to lot 73, which is one prior to the lot in discussion, it drops again to about 20 feet. That lot
Wow,
actually
that's what it
sticks
looks
into
like.
it actually sticks into the road. Then Barnabas Young Road is actually 40 feet wide, leaving Old Kings Highway. So
Yeah.
it does a sharp bend there, which
Yeah.
basically puts it in the center of 139, the
property.
lot we're discussing. If you follow it from there to Route 6, for the next 150 feet, it follows a property line, and then from McNutt's down,
The dirt path.
it's basically the vehicle tracks are on each side of her property line, and which
Yeah.
would be Waterbury's too.
Yeah.
So there is no there's
Waterbury's
nothing-
is across the street.
Yes,
Yes.
nothing is
Waterbury's
nothing
on the
is
east side. Yep.
nothing is laid out and defined in any way. The vehicle tracks go through Waterbury's yard, maybe 10 feet off of his property line into his yard. And I'm not stating this as fact. I'm going by what's on the assessor's map.
Yeah.
But once you hit McNutt's sticks
Yeah.
out approximately another 10 feet into where the
Yeah.
road layout is. And at that point,
Yeah.
the road layout, basically the dotted line for the vehicle tracks, is on each
Is
side
it?
of her property line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Bonnie, you got anything else?
So if I understand the dialogue that just happened, there's some confusion about where the property lines and where the roadway lies and where about the actual surveying of the roadway and the property line?
There is,
Bonnie, it
Bonnie,
actually just changes width. It starts very wide and narrows down to 40 to 30 to 20 to almost 8 feet. And if you look at sheet 18 in its entirety, you can kind of see that. So the road just gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And
18 or 16,
so what's the
David.
road layout there? Maybe 20 feet? Yeah.
so, but I can answer your question a little more directly, Bonnie.
Yeah,
It is not from Route 6 to Long Pond Road,
Mhm.
as Alfred said. Part of it is laid out and defined. Part of it is not laid out and defined. The one lot that we are talking about specifically tonight,
yeah, we have the plot plan of that.
the frontage of that lot, the line of Old Kings Highway
Yeah.
is laid out and defined.
Oh, so we don't have to
Okay.
worry. So it's not an
No,
issue.
you don't have to worry about the rest
Oh,
at this
Oh,
point.
So this is not an issue. Okay.
Right. I think what they were saying is they can see where the tracks are on the assessor's map. And there's not a lot of room between the tracks and the lot line on this lot. And the town's already taken down a number of trees.
Right.
So consequently, there weren't. It is not an issue as, I'm gonna say this. The problem seems by the neighbors, based on the information from the previous planning board and everything else, and with the work going out there, a lot worse than it really is and what happened.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
mixing in trees, because I think you see the plot plan, the corner of the garage is 37 feet
Yeah.
from the
From
lot
all
line.
things- from all
So
things highway.
consequently, that is relatively, and that's at least a 2-car garage, well away from the main house.
Mhm.
And then you have the rest of almost between that garage and the house, there's not a single tree. Because the septic system, you can see between the garage and the house, there's a
Yeah,
brand
right.
new septic system going in that has to be done because they got to meet the setbacks from neighbors, well and septic.
Uh-huh, right.
So it appears to the neighbors, yes, there's been a lot of tree removal and earth removal, but that really is not in our purview. But I think that's compounding the neighborhood being upset, and they're mixing apples and oranges with what a scenic road is.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if no more questions, I'm gonna go to Olga. And I go back to you, Bonnie, certainly.
No, that's okay. I'm
Okay,
good.
good.
I did go and look at it, and
Yep.
the site it's barren along maybe the 30 feet you
Mhm.
suggested and upland. And I saw an old tree stump, which is, I guess, evidence of the town cutting some trees down, but no stumps in that disturbed area. I looked at a Google map thinking that might, they're always behind, and it had lots of trees there, lots. So I don't think the people in the neighborhood were wrong that there were trees there, but it sounds like there's a technicality of what the planning board before was talking about trees along a scenic road. What does along mean? Is it is there a setback from?
in the
No,
road layout.
no. The scenic, state of Massachusetts scenic road is specific in nature. And so is our bylaw, so is the general bylaw. They can only have jurisdiction to or within the layout of the scenic road. So if you have a stone wall 1 foot in on your property that is not in the road layout, you can remove it without any problem. If you have trees 1 inch away from your property line that is not in the scenic road layout, you can take them down.
Mhm.
We have no jurisdiction over it. It's only trees. They're not even saying vegetation. It's fairly specific, trees and stone walls. We only have jurisdiction, and let's just, to make it easy, Olga, let's say in front of this lot, it happened to be laid out and defined 40 feet. Let's just assume that.
Mhm.
Even though we only have 1 line, let's assume it was 40 feet.
Mhm.
Our jurisdiction would only be within that 40 feet. We have nothing to do if it's along the scenic road, but on private property. Because now what we're doing is making a taking. We're governing what trees somebody can take down on their lot. Can't do that. We can't cross that bridge.
Mm.
Right.
I'm wondering, just as a procedural thing, there was a letter to the planning board, I guess, in July. That's Ms. Grabby refers to. Is that something that we should have seen the entire planning board when correspondence comes in? Or you said you took care of it because it wasn't
I didn't
pertinent?
take care of it. I didn't answer it because it was not within our jurisdiction.
But you wouldn't write a letter saying this is not within our jurisdiction? Thank you very much.
No, because now, once I did that, I'm entering into indirectly, I feel I'm entering into something that is not any of my business.
Mhm.
I have really the planning board really has no jurisdiction. If I suppose I could have written back to say, I'm sorry, it's not in the planning board's domain.
Well, don't you have to do that anyway if you receive a letter?
No.
You just don't answer it at all?
No, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I mean, July, we didn't meet. I'm not sure what I was thinking, other than the fact this has nothing to do with the planning board. So, as I say, until it became a letter from a number of abutters complaining about the trees in the layout, that all of a sudden it became an issue that I turned over to the tree warden.
Mhm.
The tree warden, in theory, is responsible for trees in the town of Wellfleet. Therefore, I asked him to take a look at it because he knows better.
Mhm.
And considering the tree warden is in fact the head of the DPW, they would know if any work was done out there. And I imagine they plow, so consequently they know the road. I haven't been on that road, and I can't tell you how long it's been since I've been down that road. Last time I was on it could have been when that overhang, there was a point, I can't remember how long ago, but you drive down that road and your car gets scratched. That's how overgrown it was.
Or that's when Cumbies was there.
Well, it wasn't that long, David.
You remember that?
I remember that, yeah. Olga,
Yep.
you have anything else?
I guess that answers my concerns.
Okay.
Gary, if you go by scale on that, that road's only 20 feet wide at that point.
And that's the width of the layout, not the traveled
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
width of
'cause
the layout, so.
when I was there today, I pulled down the road, and then you cannot pass two cars on that road. I pulled off on Barnabas Young to
Yeah.
walk across the street, and a trash truck went up, barely had enough room to get by me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he wanted to go down Barnabas, and I had to back out for him to make that turn, because you can't even make a turn onto that. So it's really
Yeah.
difficult if you've got a cement truck going down there to even make a turn. So I have to say that the owner had told me that they had a boat, the husband backs in up and down that hill. Knowing what was there before, he could not have done that with anything that Jay was saying was 12 feet or 14 feet wide. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't make the corner. They had to have a good size opening in existence in order to back a truck and a boat up that driveway. And the owner confirmed that they also were parking basically right on the edge of that road, and on the let's see, on the northerly side of that lot, which would be the side heading towards Long Pond Road, you can see basically that's where the edge of the driveway was. Nothing was even touched over there. It was just on the southerly side that they may have taken down some brush. So, David, you got any questions?
No,
Okay.
not really until I see it. So, yeah. I don't-
Alfred?
I believe that where the DPW is cleaning the brush shows those stumps, because that road was basically a tunnel at one point. the brush coming over top of it. And I don't believe that there's trees taken out where that opening is. I mean, they've taken 90% of the trees off the top of that hill, but I want to be very clear, that's not anything to do with that jurisdiction. And I think that's why the board was sent a letter in the summertime. I mean, if somebody cuts down 3 trees in the middle of their yard, or 30 of them, we have no jurisdiction over that, and we shouldn't be answering all those letters. I think Jerry did the right thing by turning it over to the tree warden. But I don't believe this really falls into a hearing or anything. I think it's just they cleaned up the road to get out, and maybe it got a little wider. But if you continue north after their driveway, I mean, you're back into Bramble Central. So, I mean, if that was on the other side, you wouldn't even, I think it's a non-issue.
Okay. Well, okay, planning board, you've heard each other. I think there's basically, from what you've heard, what you've seen with letters, we know there's one major issue that I believe we should clear up with the complainant, Mrs. Grabby, that there may be a misconception on her part as well as the neighbors that the scenic road is only the layout of the road, and clear up the letter that was written to her in 95. And I think that can be done very easily. All we have to do is insert the layout.
Jerry, do you feel confident in writing that letter?
Yeah, I have no problem, because I'm going to basically cite Mass General Law on scenic road, and it's really very specific that it's within the layout of the road.
Would you?
And the last sentence would simply be, we have no jurisdiction on, because I reread the letter they sent in, and they were starting to complain about whether septic, no conservation notifications, all of those. That's out of our domain. And that any trees taken down on property is not and does not have anything to do with the planning board.
Would you like a motion to support you doing that?
Yeah, let's take that one at a time, because I think that needs to be, that letter needs to be, I want to say, simply clarified. I think clarification to all butters on that, or to those individuals that signed it, needs to be made.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to hear that, and I can draw it quickly.
Well, I will make a motion authorizing you to respond to Abby and the abutters.
Okay.
That way you can
Second.
CC all the abutters that are on that list if you'd like. That's all right. I make that motion.
Seconded.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. All right. Second point. Does the planning board at this point, I think we have 2 alternatives. One, to literally advertise a public hearing as per scenic road requirements. Or 2, which the owner of the property had stated to me today, and she also had stated that her husband is in the landscaping business. Wait a reasonable time, and we certainly could put a time on it, and reply to them that we would like to see a planting plan and driveway plan layout when they, on the property, due to the questions that the butters have risen. And if if and when we get that, no, I'm sorry, when we get that. And she's already said, the owner has already said they have absolutely no problem in doing that. We could then make a decision if we feel that that was adequate renourishment to satisfy the board and put it to bed. If we find for some reason that we need to have a public meeting on it, then we can also, we don't lose anything in time here. I think Jay kind of summed it up in one of his communications. Well, I don't have much to go on. All I can do is make an assumption. And actually it came from me because we were talking about 1065 Route 6. You know, if you took a certain area and you said there were certain trees in it, but that's only if that area was bare. I mean, was treed. The applicant is telling me, I'm sorry, the owner's telling me, and I can see where basically a majority of that opening right now was probably already there in existence.
Well, Jerry, that's the whole point. Why would we even go further if there's no clear indication that he cut or she cut in the road layout? Why would we even entertain a landscape plan? Because the landscape plan would be planting on his own private property and not in the road layout. And point number two, just because you're in the landscape business doesn't mean you have any taste in landscaping. Okay?
I agree with
Period.
I agree with David on definitely the second part, but the first
Okay.
part, if we've just decided that it's not within our jurisdiction, which I believe we basically have,
Yep.
what gives us the right now to tell them that
What's
we
the
want,
plan?
even if they're willing to give us a plan, where does the planning board get the jurisdiction to tell them what they're doing in their yard? I think you're
No,
opening up a can of,
I'm okay. There's clear. Okay, good point, guys. There's
or Jerry, I'm going to continue.
yeah.
Or if we found that they've done no fault to the road, how can we tell them to fix something
That they
they didn't undo?
alter. Yeah.
Not only that, if you wait a year, the brambles are going to grow back, and it's going to look like the rest of the road. If they plant something in there, which is up to them in their own yard, then it's going to look like who knows what.
New Jersey.
It's not going to look like the way that road grows in every couple of years on its own anyways.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess I did the exact. Talk about calling the kettle black. I did the same thing that the previous planning board did when I said something. I was not inferring that a planting plan should be submitted on the property. I was thinking more that a planting plan or renourishment of the layout of the area of the layout of of the portion that falls within the scenic road, which could only be.
We have no proof.
Well, no, it could only be 2 or 3 feet. Now,
We don't know.
we don't, you're absolutely right, David, enough, and we have
We
no
don't know. We have
idea.
no.
Yep.
We don't know if they're in the layout or not. So
Right.
I'm not going to make them do nothing unless it can
Okay.
substantiate
And
that they were in the road layout.
And the other thing is that for those that have looked at it, and I don't mind putting this off to the next meeting, but if you look at it and you approach from Route 6, and this property is on the westerly side of it, you can see where the town came in and brushed back almost within a foot of the road layout on that side and brushed it. Not only took the trees down, but brushed it. They brought the
Lewis in. because it was
Is it?
for the power lines. Yeah,
Well, yeah, but
they
it's
did all
also,
that cutting.
it's the machine that you go in with that they do the slopes on the side of the roads, the town roads.
The
It's like
flailer,
a tractor with a gravely
Yeah,
on
the
it.
flailer.
flailer.
You can tell that they went in and flared that whole area, at least 3 feet off, 4 feet off the dirt road. So I guess you've got coming around there, you've got a better sight, and they're
So,
gonna have to stabilize it because they can't go in the road anyway. So yeah, we could leave it just as is. I mean,
well, other than that, you're telling them to plant something with the town may flail it again.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean,
If it
that's
goes-
kind
they
of
have no right
scary.
they also have no right to plant something in the road layout, as they have no right to cut it down. So
That's a
gotta
good
let them
point,
plant
David.
anything.
That's a good point.
You know?
I think we should move on from this project.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm over it.
I agree. This is a
All right.
non-budget.
I ask that you go to Google Maps and just take a look, and before and after you visit the site, because it is very densely.
But when was the house built then?
The house was, I believe it was there then.
Well, I
Yeah, oh, yeah,
gotta,
it's been there forever.
I gotta tell you, looking at it with as many driveways as I put in,
Yeah.
most of that driveway was in existence for years. That was, you can tell when something new comes in, that driveway was there and it wasn't 12 feet wide. It wasn't 12 feet wide. And you take a look at some of the other driveways on that road, they're not 12 feet. They're wide open. So
But
I
it's
don't
their
know if I want to
property.
rely on Google Maps that may be 10, 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years old. Do we really want to go there?
Mhm.
Mm.
It
No,
doesn't matter.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna make another motion.
It's their
Yeah,
property.
okay. Let's, I see
I'm
your point.
gonna
Al,
make a
but-
motion.
Yeah, make a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we put this to bed. It's a non-issue.
Okay. Any second
I'll second.
discussion? Any discussion? I hear sighs, but I don't hear any discussion.
Yeah, I feel for the abutters, and it's I mean, I guess it's not our business. No,
Yeah.
I mean, but the spirit of, suggesting at least, that they work with the abutters to have a landscaping plan, or just, I mean, I think we can suggest things without it being,
I think they're going to, in talking to the owner today,
yeah.
they just bought the property about a year ago, year plus.
Uh-huh.
They're they love Wellfleet. That's why they bought here. They love the area.
They all
they're
say
gonna-
that,
they're gonna
Jerry.
live here
Don't
year
buy into
round.
that.
They're gonna live here year round. They needed a garage.
Oh, they say that too. Till they find out the hospital's an hour away.
Anyway, any other discussion? All right, seeing none. Vote. All those in favor of just dropping the subject?
All
Aye.
right.
Aye.
Yeah.
Was there anyone opposed? It's unanimous. It's dropped. Thank you. Okay, moving on. ADU. It's on there to give you an update. The ADU was not notifications on the hearing for the ADU that the planning board had was deemed inadequate by the Attorney General.
No mystery there.
All right, David, behave. That is not unusual. I can tell you when we changed the zoning bylaws back in 2018 on a massive change, we missed a couple of things and we had to do the exact same thing that we're doing now. So the state wrote back to the town clerk to renotice, I'm sorry, re is the wrong word, to notify the two abutting towns to Wellfleet. Anybody else that was supposed to be notified, in this case would have been the seashore, to advertise at least once in a paper and to post the bylaw. They didn't turn it down. They didn't give any, whether they're going, I know they're going to pass it. The posting has been done. The ad has gone into the paper. And today is the 17th. And if memory serves me, the 21-day appeal period is over on Friday, the 19th. And to my knowledge, at this point, nobody has filed an objection with the town clerk.
I got time then, right?
Yeah. So if no objection, oh, even if an objection is made, whatever the results of that is, whether there's an objection or no objection, the town clerk will then notify the Attorney General of the results. I'm going to jump to an assumption here that no one's going to appeal. And they will then issue the letter back to the town, most likely certifying the zoning bylaws. So that's where that side stands.
Good.
Bonnie, to answer your question, because it's regarding the ADU, it probably didn't go on because it really, even though it's law, and the building inspector would have to issue a building permit,
Uh-huh.
he would also have to write a disclaimer that you pass at your own risk because the Attorney General has not approved it. So probably that is the only reason I can think of, it's that it's not posted on
Okay.
the town warrant.
Do the
it
appeals have to
certainly-
go to the town clerk or the town attorney general, Jerry?
It goes from the town clerk to the Attorney General.
Oh, so I can appeal to the town clerk, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So when that, I'm going to jump to the assumption that it's going to get passed. When we codify, and I think it will be there at the next town meeting, annual town meeting, when the codification from the company, when we have it on town meeting floor to codify and renumber, that new bylaw would go into that codification and be numbered and put into the zoning bylaw at that point.
I see.
So that takes care of your point, I think, Bonnie.
Yeah, well, I was
Yeah.
just actually looking for the text so I could see what the email referred, I could see whether we thought the text was unclear at all. I mean, Elaine's response was quite clear. You know, I was just trying to.
Wait a minute,
do
when
a
did you
little
talk to
homework.
Elaine? When did you talk to Elaine?
No. Her response was in the emails
What,
on the ADU.
recently?
Yeah, the email chain that we got forwarded by Karen today.
Well, I've had a lot going on. What was said?
Okay. It will say, let me see, it was a long chain. Well, first there was a letter from Victor to Elaine. He
Oh,
was
sure.
basically, but, Oh, Victor wrote to Elaine about whether there were multiple ADUs allowed on a lot or just one. And Elaine responded that yes, the ADU FAQ sheet, but anyway, the new bylaw that the state allows only one ADU on a plot by right, but we felt that was too restrictive, as we have many large houses and large lots that accommodate more than one. And we
No, we
chose
don't.
to use the
No, we
state
didn't.
bylaw. So we chose not to use the state bylaw. And basically, the number of ADUs is restricted by the new Title V and lot size restrictions, you know, so I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's,
Okay, I get it. All right.
yeah.
Bonnie is reading to Beth and whoever else jumped in. Bonnie is reading what Elaine McElroy said. She is not reading
What we said.
into it what the planning board's thoughts were. She's
Right.
she's
I got it.
retorting to Elaine.
You asked me to
Yeah.
read you the correspondence.
because I was
between Victor
wondering,
and Elaine.
I
Yeah,
was smiling, Bonnie, because the report that I just gave you was on the Attorney General's side.
yeah,
The bylaw gets additional scrutiny because the present building inspector, now to the entire board, the building inspector is interpreting the way that the selectmen's zoning bylaw was written and
yes,
approved on town meeting floor, that the opening definition of a ADU is singular in nature. It states
Plain reading of the law.
It states a
Yeah.
ADU can either be attached or detached. It can have a kitchen, full facilities, living quarters, and have not more than 1,200 square feet.
mhm,
The second, when you go to read on further, the individuals that wrote the bylaw went plural on unit and put an S after it and said units. So Victor is taking, or has initially in discussions with an individual or individuals who have asked about ADUs, that an ADU can be built by right, but only singular in nature, not multiple.
uh-huh,
So it was questioned, he was questioned. That was his viewpoint. Now, no permits have been issued yet, basically because I think a lot of people are simply waiting. However, I was brought into the picture with a question, as planning board chair, as to intent. And so, like I have with all building inspectors, as I've been chair, is when they arrive, and I think I discussed this with the board members before, we will have a lot of phone calls with new building inspector. I will have a lot of phone calls with building inspectors on intent of bylaw.
Did you have many with Vinny? He only lasted 2 days.
I did, as a matter of fact. The second day he was,
Wow.
the second day he was there, I had a conversation with him, David.
Wow.
Anyway, long and short is, I have in fact talked to Victor about this. And I think you are all aware that my vote was against the article, not the intent of the article, but against the article because it didn't have a number in there as far as maximum number of units. But I presented on town meeting floor and I said, Victor, I said, I have a written document from and agreed to by all of the planning board that I read on town meeting floor in opposition to the bylaw, not the intent, but the way it was written, because it left the door open to multiple units. And I said, I'll tell you what I will do. I will have Karen send over, and I kept my fingers crossed that she kept a copy of that, and she did. Thank you very much, Karen. Rebecca had it in file, and she was able to dig it out. And I sent over to Victor that letter that we all prepared for me to read on town meeting floor, that we were all in favor of accessory dwelling units in the town of Wellfleet and the need for them. However, the intent, the way we saw it was for multiple units, that the only thing that stepped in as far as numbers was septic. And he received that copy. And I had a discussion with him the other day. I think it was yesterday on some other matter, and then I brought up that matter. And no, it was Monday, and Karen got that right over to him, and I talked to him on Tuesday. It was yesterday, and he got the letter, he read it, and he sees the intent. Now, the
He
building
sees the intent of the
inspector-
planning board, but not the article.
Well,
The
that's,
article's intent
David,
was a
that's,
free-for-all.
yeah,
That's
David,
correct.
that's all I can do. All I can do
Yeah, I
is
know.
get what the planning board felt was the
Yeah.
intent of that bylaw. And I
Yeah,
think
rainbow.
I'm not stepping out of bounds with board members. I think we all thought that it was not restricted to one, that it was multiple, and it didn't have a number in there as far as maximum.
Right.
So the planning board, through me as chair,
Did his
has
job.
submitted to Victor what I read on town meeting floor. Now, we could all go, I could go further if necessary. And we have minutes from when we had the public hearing.
Yep.
We had discussion on a number of meetings regarding this issue, that we were all basically under the same assumption. And I'm not going to put words in your mouths, but I believe we were all under the assumption that it was a multiple number that was allowed. Now, what the building inspector does is totally up to the building inspector. He is the enforcing agent for the zoning bylaws.
And even if it, Jerry, if it gets passed, people can apply for multiples. Victor can deny it and they can take that to the ZBA.
Exactly, David. And I said, I did clarify, and I'm telling the board members to keep you all appraised of what's going on. I did tell Victor, along with what I already brought you up to speed with, is that this is a bylaw, because I referred back to the zoning bylaw for the AADU that the planning board drew and had on record. And we did not make that mistake. We touched on multiple units in the definition. We touched on multiple units on the maximum number. So I said to him, and we, the planning board, did not draw this bylaw. This was drawn by.
No, it was the monkeys at top and behind doors, no less, with
Yes.
cigars and Budweiser.
It was drawn by someone, another group with two attorneys.
And
My,
competent, no less.
my
Hey,
suggestion,
let's be respectful, please.
my
I'm sorry.
suggestion,
There were-
my
Would you-
suggestion was, yeah, I got it, Bonnie, and I will really make it necessary. My suggestion was to Victor, now that he has a letter from the planning board that I read on town meeting floor with intent, that he get a letter off to, and I chose to mention Elaine because I think she was, the affordable housing people were one of the spearheads on it, to Elaine McElroy and get her input. And that since two attorneys, in fact, wrote the bylaw or helped write the bylaw, that's really where he should go if he has any further questions on how and why the bylaw was written that way. We didn't write it. We voiced our opinion against it solely on numbers. So
But
where it's
Jerry,
gonna
that
go.
means-
So where it's gonna go, wait a minute, David. So where it's gonna go from here, I have no idea. At this point, it's back in Victor's lap. As Bonnie said, you've seen a letter that he wrote to Elaine. He confirmed with me yesterday that he wrote that letter to Elaine. And when he talked to me yesterday, and I think it was relatively late in the morning, he hadn't heard back from her. So
Yeah.
my feeling is, unless board members here have a different opinion, is I have expressed the planning board's position. I have expressed the fact that we didn't draw the bylaw. I've expressed the fact that we felt and presented to the town of Wellfleet at the open meeting, as well as the town meeting, that we were dealing with multi-units on the same property by right. So I think at this point, it really now is outside of our domain and falls within more convincing from those that wrote the bylaw. And it's really up to him
Well-
on how he's going to, in fact, regulate it.
He will go either way, Jerry, but the point being is Victor will read the law as written, and that's why he wanted clarification. He understood,
Yes,
and you explained to him our intent. He understands Elaine's intent, but ultimately he will read it the way he chooses to. He will not make the law by intent. He will read
No.
it on his own
And so
reading,
will the
as
next
a building
building
inspector
inspector.
should.
and he
So,
will,
in all
but he will,
likelihood,
but he will,
so you either get it cleared up or not. He's
Right, but he
recommending
will
to us
take
that we
in-
clear it up.
yeah, but he will take into consideration, as he did, as the board members saw when he wrote that letter on the foundation, he will
Intent,
consider
yes.
if it's strongly presented.
Oh, yeah.
if he accepts it, the intent. Because it is,
Yes,
it's certainly not as clear as it would have been, and if we had hashed it over the way we normally do, because
yeah.
we would have caught those things and said there are no maximum numbers except for septic.
Or
So
I,
it's,
not putting words in his mouth, I think he's concerned because he's here for a short duration. And
Exactly.
the new individual will be starting in December, and he would like it at least so the guy has a clear understanding on which way to go with it.
exactly, because if he issues a permit,
Yeah,
that basically is an indication on what way that bylaw is going to go in the
in
future.
perpetuity.
And
Yeah,
if it doesn't, here's the way I'm reading it, board members. If in fact he makes a decision contrary to the way we thought it was, and to those that wrote it, there is still time for those that wrote it to, in fact, clarify it and place an amendment on town meeting floor for April. So
yeah, that would be the
Timing
appropriate
is not-
mechanism.
it's not like this popped its head in March where you don't have enough time to file an amendment for the April town meeting. There is enough time here that if in fact they can't convince him otherwise, they can, if they so desire, make the correction.
Has anybody looked at Article 46 for this whole discussion?
Article 46 was, I did.
And it says, if you read, it says table of contents. Starts off, affordable accessory dwelling units.
But
Okay.
40, yep, but 46,
hereby
remember,
But it's hereby deleted, because that was in 45. An accessory dwelling units is submitted in its place hereon. It doesn't say accessory dwelling unit. That was the whole reason why I believe the board, at least my statement in the board, was because the word dwelling units was in there instead of dwelling unit. A unit is one.
yes.
A unit, we can fight over what that number is, but it's definitely more than one.
And that's
Are you saying
what
it
he
was
looked.
advertised right?
He looked
This
at
is the way
the first,
this is the way it was approved on town meeting floor, David.
Units, plural,
It
then
says
it should be
in
clear, yeah. Then
Article
Victor's
46.
reading it wrong.
no,
Article
45 was approved. 46 was withdrawn.
Withdrawn.
45 was approved and 46 was withdrawn.
Are you sure?
Absolutely, because the selectmen, when they set it up,
They went first?
theirs would be first, and the affordable, or
All right.
I'll
So
go,
if you read it,
no disrespect, I'm just making it for my own clarity, I'm just saying the affordable housing group.
well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 45 and 46 are the same, basically. Because if you read the
Yeah,
same
there's some-
line,
There's some
a
minor,
little different.
but
but
the
the S's is still-
definition, he's going to the definition on 45 before you even get to the plural in the next couple lines. He's going to the definition as singular. And
Yeah, but
that's what's stuck in his craw.
It says Article 45, accessory dwelling units.
That's a description of the warrant article, but the article definition, if it had
It's singular.
put an S on it, there would have been no problem.
But if you go to the table use, okay,
Okay, is that singular or
it-
plural?
that is singular. But
Oh.
if you go to the verbiage to approve it, it said affordable accessory dwelling hereby deleted, and accessory dwelling units is submitted in place hereon.
Right.
So it
All
doesn't
right, so
say
that's a
any,
discrepancy, yeah.
so the discrepancy is in the use table.
I think
But
there's
not in-
also, since you got the use table open, Alfred,
Yeah,
we took out, they took out affordable accessory dwelling units in the opening paragraph 45 to delete that bylaw. And then in the
Yes.
use table below it, it's taken out with a 0 in every district, but a P in commercial.
but under 5.4.6, intensity of use application to accessory dwelling units.
Yeah.
Well, there's a discrepancy that needs to be amended, Alfred, because if that's how they describe it, but then you go to definitions and it's the singular, the discrepancy is in the entirety of Article 45. And that can be amended, as Jerry said, by March, should they do so.
I'm not
That would
disagreeing,
require an
David.
amendment, or,
It's just the fact that 50% of it says unit, and the other 50%, actually, I think it's more like 75% says units, but the use table
says
is
unit.
clear.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, this is just definitions. Read 547, intensity of use application. And it says no dwelling unit shall be converted into 2 or more units.
That's a conversion.
That's a
Right.
conversion, yeah.
Yeah, but it's obviously is allowing more than 182. I mean,
Well, it is, but the problem he's having is that the dwelling accessory in the definition, a self-contained housing unit inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities in the same lot as a principal dwelling or other principal structure that shall be leased year-round. Dwelling accessory, a self-contained housing unit. And then it goes on to say in 6.21.2, accessory dwelling unit, accessory dwelling as defined in section 2.1 definitions of the Wellfleet zoning bylaw. So it's referring back to the definition
Which is singular.
of 2.1 as singular, but then in 6.212, accessory dwelling units are allowed either as detached building, or a separate dwelling unit within or attached to dwelling, building, or principal use. 6 and 2 is 2, accessory dwelling units shall not be no larger. Accessory dwelling units
mhm,
are in 2 and 2.2.
Right.
So he's going from singular to plural. So the definition should have been plural as well. And that's the
But
kind
that's
of
the
thing.
controlling factor.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that Victor, as a building
at.
inspector for as long as he has been, will pick up. And when there's an inadequacy and not consistent, he tends to send things to the Board of Appeals and not say, wait a minute, it's not, if I don't really know more, I'll just send it off to Board of Appeals. Well, number one, that was not the intent the way it was written because it was by right. And number two, the intention for all
No,
intent and purposes was multiple numbers.
Jerry, I have to correct you on that.
Well,
The intent was not by right. The intent was by right for some people, not for everybody.
anybody that can
No.
do it, it was by right.
No, it's discriminatory. It's not by right in the park. Okay?
Well,
That's discriminatory. So don't
but you-
use that blanket statement that it was made by right. That's BS.
It-
Okay? Enough of that. It was made by right for some, but not all. Period.
And you have a point, David.
That's the way they wrote it. Discriminatory.
Because you're only allowed one single-family dwelling in the National Seashore.
Yes, discriminatory. That's a residential district.
But
Discriminatory, period.
that's by park law.
Yeah, it's a national
No,
park.
the park has nothing to do with it. Wellfleet controls the zoning. The park does not.
Okay. Anyway, that's the problem with the ADU. It's now up to Victor to decide which way he's going to interpret. And I think we've contributed to what we can. And any additional discussion, I think I did see you, yeah, any additional discussion probably will come through Elaine, and she may choose somebody else to do it, but it's going to come that way. Olga?
I'd just like to point out that all definitions that I can see are in the singular. Dwelling, one family dwelling, family, multiple, so there's
Family
nothing wrong.
dwelling is a single unit, because that's what's allowed only in all residential areas is a single unit. In the ADU bylaw, I think, if memory serves
It's
me,
singular. Dwelling, affordable accessory. It's the nature of definitions that they be singular. And I would
Right,
ask
Victor, to
that the person who is doing codification might be asked to clarify the language where there are sometimes plurals and sometimes not, so that it's not confusing.
okay, let me jump in on that one. At this point, that is not where they're going. At this point, they are renumbering. There's only so much they can do between now and town meeting, because they're not just dealing with our subdivision control laws. They are dealing with the general bylaws, the charter, and zoning bylaws and subdivision control law. So consequently, they have enough time to put that together, redo every single numbering section in all 4 of those documents prior to the town warrant going out. So therefore, they're going to basically, except for any new zoning bylaws we put in, leave the zoning bylaw as is, except change the numbering system to be consistent with all 4 of those documents that are being codified. Then what we will do is we will take the next step and go in, to your point, Olga, and say, all right, first thing is punctuation, second thing is capitalization, and thirdly, let's start getting into what zoning bylaws we may want to change. But right now, no, they're not going there. They don't have the time to do it, and
Okay.
they want to get it.
But it does need to be done.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So
So,
this conversation
Jerry,
is
Yep.
something we can work on at a later time as
Yeah.
to clarify.
yeah. Karen?
Jerry, I don't know if you want to, Helen has her hand up, just FYI.
Okay, Helen, regarding?
I just wanted to point out that at no point in the bylaw does it use the phrase by right, and that was at the suggestion of the building inspector at the time. It says in 6.21.2, accessory dwelling is defined by blah, blah, is an additional dwelling unit allowed on a single lot in all districts of the town if in compliance with all town, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and federal statutes, bylaws, and regulations where applicable, unless otherwise allowed by this bylaw. In other words, like any house that had multiple bedrooms, only you could have 4 units instead of a house with 4 bedrooms. So at no point does it say by right.
It is by right.
Put that out. Thank
It
you.
is by right.
It is by right. It's permitted anywhere in the town of Wellfleet except for the National Seashore, by
Yes,
right with no
that-
special permit.
Yes, but that phrase is not used, and what applies to it is in what I just read.
You-
Thank you.
But
Jerry.
Helen, you do not have to put in any zoning bylaw the definition within the definition by right. It's in the use table whether or not it's by right or by special permit.
Yes, I know. I'm very familiar.
Okay, so it is by right.
Yes, but
For some.
under certain conditions, they are listed. So thank you, Jerry, for letting me say that.
No problem. Okay. It's semantics. Anyway, that's where we're at.
Sherry,
Yeah.
you, I
hold on.
would like, you sent the text of what you spoke at town meeting to our interim building commissioner.
Yes,
Could we see a copy of that?
you have it.
I don't think so. A
Yeah,
letter?
the copies of what we wrote, David Mead Fox wrote it. It came back to the planning board,
that?
for distribution. It was then sent out to every member. You all agreed to it, and that's basically the bullets I touched on at town meeting floor.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
confused.
So
It
we-
sounded
but we
like-
need to just figure out which meeting it was where that got distributed to us. Yeah, okay.
Well, I can tell you which meeting. It got distributed, let's see. And Helen will certainly correct me, but I think the town meeting last year was August,
September.
was it first in September?
No.
Well,
June 26th?
It was June 26th.
June
What was it?
26th.
oh, June 26th, yes.
Okay,
exactly.
June 26th. We met, finalized that letter.
Oh,
Because it
so
was
in
on a
June.
Saturday. We either did it the Wednesday or Thursday before or the week before that. We did it that close to town meeting.
Ah,
So
yeah.
if you wanna find something to all members, that's where you should look, because that's where it turned up.
Okay,
But certainly Karen can chase it down for you. I'll go if you can't find it.
Okay, thank you.
But I wrote exactly
Yeah.
what was written. I read almost exactly what was written.
Okay.
ah,
That the board agreed to on. Yes,
I have a draft version. I just found it on my computer from June 5th. But what I don't have is anything on my computer that is labeled final version,
I think the draft was accepted. I think it's basically the draft.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-uh.
if you want, I'll just send it to everybody and that way. it'll
No,
say-
you can't,
No,
that has
Yeah.
got to stop. When
I'll
you
send it to Karen.
Thank you very much. You can't, and when you address somebody, when you're sending out stuff, it has got to go through Karen. Do not,
Okay.
put- everybody, please. I'm
Well, I
trying to
know.
keep Open meeting law as clean as I can.
Yeah, I know. I
Okay,
mean,
so let's put that one to bed. The only other thing I have on the correspondence that you have seen is that we have received under correspondence. This is not up for discussion because it was not on the agenda. I'm just reading correspondence. We have received a request on Rowell Road to withdraw the subdivision that they have submitted.
wow.
wow.
So I'm gonna send a letter back I'm gonna have Karen send a letter back that we accept the letter and the subdivision has been withdrawn.
Wow.
So don't make
We're
any,
gonna do 9 units of an ADU.
don't make
Can we
any
do that without a vote?
suppositions from that. Don't make any assumptions. That's all that has come through.
Gary?
Very simple. Yes, Alfred. Yeah,
You're muted, maybe.
Gary,
yes, Alfred.
doesn't that have to come back for a vote to do that?
Yes.
No, because you can't vote because it's basically they're withdrawing it. They can withdraw it anytime. We can't say,
They
no,
can-
you can't withdraw it.
They don't have to withdraw without prejudice? They can just
They
withdraw it?
did. They withdrew. If you read the letter, because
Oh.
I think you'll get it, she withdrew without prejudice.
But there's not a, so that doesn't work the same way the zoning board does then? In order to withdraw
Well,
from the
you
zoning
know,
board, you need a vote.
Let's put it this way, Alfred. I've never, in all the years, had a subdivision withdrawn.
So
So,
maybe we should
Well,
take a look?
so maybe what I'll do,
yeah,
is I'll put it on the agenda because it's under correspondence and it's still under correspondence. I wanted to let all of you know that. I'll put it back on the agenda for discussion on the 15th.
Yeah,
but
I'm not,
Jerry, what,
No,
wouldn't that
I'm not
I'd rather,
timestamp it?
I'd rather dot the I, Alfred, excellent input. I would rather dot the I and cross the T. And if we didn't need to do it and we do it, no skin off our back, we at least are on record of doing it. No, I'm glad to discuss that.
I mean, I'll read the zoning,
See it, Olga.
subdivision control bylaw to see where it comes into it too then.
I will too. Olga,
I think you said we received a request to withdraw, and that might have been what made,
I'd have to read it, but it's a request to withdraw, yes.
so that
Withdrawing
they're
without
asking.
prejudice, yeah. Well,
That implies vote, doesn't it?
we
Yeah,
don't
It does.
have any say. If they want to withdraw, they want to withdraw.
Exactly.
but Jerry, it's the timestamp for repetitive petitions. And like Alfred points out, it probably is a mechanism similar to zoning. That becomes important.
Right.
Because they have a 2-year window that they cannot resubmit unless it's substantially different. If it's like,
No.
if it's like zoning,
No, it's not like
if
zoning.
it's like zoning.
No,
Okay.
you can do a subdivision and you can withdraw without prejudice, and the next day you can turn around and put a new subdivision in on a different owner. Yeah, sure, no problem.
Well, I've never had one done when I've been here either, so that's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
Jerry.
and I think I don't know if it warrants,
Well, look in the book.
I'll look in the book and I don't think it warrants town council. I think simply we can discuss it at the next meeting on the 15th, and if it comes up that we want to send a letter back, fine.
I
No
think,
harm,
I
no
think the
foul.
other,
Yeah,
the other advantage of that is the abutters would be aware that this was done.
Mhm.
We should just put it on the agenda.
yeah, but actually the
And we
butters,
can't
you know,
discuss it.
as I'm thinking through it, the abutters really have no say in the matter. They can
It's an
have
and.
it a public hearing, but they're withdrawing and ending the discussion indirectly. The abutters have nothing or anything to say after receipt of that letter. It's over and done with. They can't dive back into it. to
No, I don't mean it
discuss
that way. I'm just saying for notification, Jerry.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I think it should. I put it on correspondence, so at least I could bring it to your
Yeah.
attention.
I'm sorry I made a
I
mess
don't think
out of
it's,
it.
yeah, I don't know, that's okay. I don't think by putting it on the 15th on the agenda, I'll look at it, Alfred, but I'll let the board know, when I put it on the agenda, I'm gonna try and be as specific as I possibly can, that the discussion is on rescinding, and that is all. Because the last thing I want to do is have them start hashing up something, because we really can't discuss it.
Well, if it's quiet in the book, that's fine. If it's not, and it has to be done at that point, it would be just for the board to accept the letter. Then you don't have to open anything else up.
Yes, but to your point, and now maybe I will call council. Maybe council will recommend that we write back to accept the letter as dated such and such to withdraw without prejudice. So we may need to dot that I and cross that T. Let me check. Thanks for the heads up. Yep. I don't think there's anything else.
Minutes.
Okay. Anything on changes on minutes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
'Cause we discussed in great detail what our responses and our thoughts about what to tell Victor, what to do. These minutes, I think we have to go further. I'm not questioning the minutes, but that maybe we need to put in the language of bylaws what we're asking to do. The purpose of our discussing Victor's issues was, I think, to maybe make some substantial changes to bylaws.
Yes.
And the minutes don't really say, we suggest X, that the wording should be such.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
And I'm wondering if we should. I mean, what happened at this? Is this meeting just going to be dropped, or are we going to actually move forward with making some changes?
Well, it was left that I need to talk to Victor to get clarification on whether or not, to David Rao's point, he thought some of the questions on definitions that Victor had were answered in other portions of the zoning bylaws. And I needed clarification with Victor to see if in fact that was the case. If that's the case, it's off the table.
Because that was, Jerry, that was Bonnie's trouble with it too. It was in there, but it wasn't, what was the word you used, Bonnie? Cross-reference?
Cross-referencing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't cross-referenced properly.
The minutes simply should state, we discussed the building inspector's
Concerns.
input, period. That really is the report of what we discussed at that point. We didn't vote on anything except the fact that one of the 4 points or 5 points, and I honestly, because I don't have it in front of me, and maybe David Rao remembers, there was one specifically that we said, no, we don't need to address. So-
Yeah, decks or whatever,
Nope, it wasn't that one, it was another one. I think it was
That's it.
almost the last one or something.
I'm concerned that this good discussion that occurred, let me just take the one about building inspector. The notes say replace building inspector. There is a local inspector. I think what he wanted was building commissioner should be,
Yes,
and let's just say that and try to have it part of a housekeeping town meeting article.
you don't do it that easily, number one. Number two, we have
Yeah,
to
it's
vote
not
on
the-
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I-
we have to
Right,
vote on
but
it.
it would be nice if all these points, which were the discussion was good. And if we want cross-referencing, how would we do it? Let's move this along, is what I'm
And you
saying.
should-
And
and
this
you
is
should-
just kind of
and you should-
general.
You should put it on the agenda for a future meeting. And then the board would vote on whether or not to take an action. But since you
That's the-
didn't vote to take an action, it doesn't belong in minutes.
That's right. 'Cause it
So,
was left to me as chair to go talk to the building inspector to say, okay,
For clarification.
we need clarification. We felt that this may be taken care of. For example, referring, as David was said, and Olga, what you just said is decks open. He felt that decks as written was not a structure and therefore could go lot line to lot line. And then David said, no, I think it's covered under open porches,
Open deck, yeah.
open decks. So before we can
It's
meet
implied if nothing
again
else.
to discuss whether or not we want to put it up in the zoning bylaws to change, we got to find out where Victor's going with it. And I haven't had time to see Victor, but I will do it before the December 15th meeting, hopefully.
But I have a
Is it-
question to all this,
Can I
Jerry.
say something too?
Go
Yep,
ahead.
wait a
You
minute,
go first.
Bonnie. Go ahead, Alfred.
Go ahead. No, let Bonnie go. Go ahead.
Bonnie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, I personally want to thank Karen for making such complete notes. I think there's real value. I agree with Olga. There's real value in having some of the details of our discussion written down. And there are decisions that we provisionally made. We said occupancy permit, change this one. You know, so it was like.
But that's
we
not a
made
vote.
some-
Yeah.
No, it's not a vote, but it's important to have the records so we don't keep having the same conversations over and over again. These are, you know, these are complex,
But that's not the purpose of minutes.
well, maybe it's not the purpose.
That is the purpose of being videotaped and having a record of this so that we can go back and look. But minutes are not supposed to record everything everybody says.
That's right, but I think there are some cases.
Well,
like
but somebody else thinks it's a different case. That's why minutes are about what's on the agenda, what votes are taken, what actions those votes lead to, who makes the motion. I mean, that's what minutes are. They're not a verbatim of discussion. When we
So-
used to do that, we would spend 20 minutes correcting what people, well, I didn't mean to say that. What I meant to say was, and that went round and round and round because you can't get it all. Minutes are not meant to do that. They're a record of the actions we take on the agenda.
At that meeting,
Thank you.
not future.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Respectfully. Jerry?
No, no, sorry, Helen. This isn't really open right now. We get the point. We're working on it. The minutes are fine. If you want to make a change, I'll go in something, fine, go ahead. But let's just proceed.
Okay, maybe we should approve the minutes, but I would like to make a motion afterwards concerning what we do based on this discussion we have, that you are going to talk with Victor, and following the feedback we get from your conversation with him, I think we should move forward as a planning board or a working committee of 2 or 3 of us and say, hey, this is what area building should
This,
stay.
So what you should do is make a motion to put it back on the agenda for the next meeting. So we can talk about it
Oh, good.
Well,
and vote on things and take actions. So that should be a motion to bring it back onto the
right,
agenda.
the
continue.
motion now is about the meeting minutes, so I didn't want to, put a second motion.
the discussion at this point is on, number
Meeting-
one, we have an agenda and can't go off the agenda. Number two, what's before us now is simply to approve or change the minutes and take a vote. So is there any changes to the minutes as written?
I vote to approve the minutes as written.
Any second? No second,
Oh, okay.
okay?
I have to abstain.
Yeah,
I want to make an
I'll
amendment.
second.
Well, okay, go. Now discussion.
discussion.
The issue of coverage was missed, so I'd like to put that in after building front line. Otherwise, I think they're great.
Okay. The individual that made the motion, are they willing to accept the? All right, wait a minute. I gotta make a motion on, is there a second on the change?
To add coverage between building front line and dwelling multifamily. Because one of the discussed.
Was that one of the bullets?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Is there a second to make that change? No. Okay. So we go back to the original motion to accept as printed. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the minutes as printed?
Fine.
Alfred?
I,
I abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay, David, yes?
And also,
2,
Olga? Are
I'll
you-
vote for it. Go ahead.
4,
Yeah.
4-0. Okay,
Um,
next meeting is the 15th. Of December.
Right. So, Olga, are you going to make a motion to reconsider the bylaw things at the next meeting? Or,
I'm understanding that that's an agenda item. I will
That's
make
an
a
agenda.
request that it be put on the agenda in a note to Karen to refer to everybody else.
is it, oh, that, I thought, oh, okay.
That's
I
what
thought
I'm
we were-
hearing. It's an
I
agenda
thought it had to
item.
be a motion. Okay,
No,
good.
the request, I put it on the agenda.
Yes. Not part of this meeting.
So what we will do is continue discussion on building inspector's letter of possible changes to zoning bylaw definitions.
Yes,
So I'll put that on the 15th. Okay,
great.
good. That's it. Happy Thanksgiving.
got a motion to adjourn.
Any
I make
second?
that motion.
Yep, any second?
I'll second.
I was gonna say, nobody wants to adjourn. Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
I don't think anyone's
Aye.
opposed. Thank you very much. Good night, all.
Aye.
Good night.
Oh, Karen, have a good vacation. Oh, she's gone.
Thanks, Jerry.
There you go.
No, I'm not gone. Thank you.
All right, enjoy yourself.
I'm gonna, I'm
I'm
not coming back. I won't come back.
I didn't hear that.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. Goodbye.